Now we're recording. So I'll just say, welcome to Escalate, pronounced Escalate, but spelled SCALATE, which stands for Sickle Cell Across the Lived and Treatment Experience. And we are introducing our speaker at the moment. Bert L. Wright Jr. is a servant leader, a social entrepreneur, an Amazon #1 best-selling author, and a certified hypnotist. Who knew? Are you going to use that skill tonight? I know that's always asked, right? Bert is someone who believes that entrepreneurship can be a vehicle of social change. He grew up in a household of entrepreneurs. His dad was a general contractor and a real estate appraiser and inspector. His mom had her own daycare for many years. His father taught him that entrepreneurship um, is a pathway to controlling your own future and making a difference in the world. As a young person, Bert developed his entrepreneurial muscles as a paper boy in junior high school. He learned the power of creating his own personal economy and loved the feeling of creating a paycheck at will. I'm hooked. Bert's drive to be a change agent came from watching his dad start a neighborhood watch program on his block when they lived in Los Angeles. The goal was to help create a safe space for the neighbors and the kids, especially his own, from the criminal element that often was present in the street. Bert honors his father's legacy through his ongoing community service as a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, serving on the board of directors for the University of California Riverside Alumni Association, and as a member of the University of California Riverside Chancellor's Advisory Committee. Bert has worked in corporate America, helping over 20 business owners, helping generate over $100 million in over 7 years. Bert has co-generated over seven million with a global volunteer sales force. He wrote the sale training manual for a major influencer. He is skilled at negotiating speaking contracts worth multiple six figures. He has a bachelor's degree in liberal studies and a master's of science in organizational leadership. After spending over a decade as a W-2 employee, he made a leap to entrepreneurship. Bert can attest that it is harder than it looks and loves the journey at the same time. It's been a place for tremendous personal and professional growth. He loves to share those lessons with anyone that is willing to listen. He is married to his beautiful wife, Kixon.
Close. Exquisite. Exquisite.
Exquisite. Oh, I should have just read it like it says. Exquisite and lives in Riverside, California. So without any further ado, Bert, please take it away.
Well, thank you, Dr. Austin. Do I have sharing capacity? I
I
don't know.
am I'm clicking to make sure you do right now.
Okay. So, once again, thank you, Dr. Austin, for that wonderful introduction. Sometimes when you hear it yourself read back to you, it sounds you're like, who is that person? So trust me, guys, I really am just kind of a humble person, a humble servant. I'm just trying to do God's will. And glad to see some familiar names. Miss Etta Carter, Miss Chandler, good to see some familiar names. Dr. Austin, good to see you again. It's been a couple of years since I've seen you back in Atlanta a few years ago, different things. So today, guys, a couple of things I want to kind of set the expectation today. What I didn't share, I actually used to be a former school teacher at one point, so I am really big about my class being interactive. I love the fact that today's format is very informal. So I'm going to share a few things. I'm going to create space for times to ask questions. If you have a more burning question, you can go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll try to call on you. Or Dr. Austin, if you see their hands being raised, you can call them out while I'm talking to him as well there too. Take notes. This call is going to be recorded. I'm going to go through a lot of information. It may feel like you're kind of drinking from a water hose, but that's okay. And I want to take out today's call really is about life planning for warriors and caregivers. And with that, I'm going to lead into my presentation and we'll get started here. So as always, I do have to give a disclaimer because we're going to talk about some things that can have some legal ramifications, financial ramifications, tax ramifications there too. So primarily this is for education purposes only. You should always seek legal, financial, and tax counsel as you see fit. I am not well versed in answering every question you may ask me. Some questions I can give you some answers, and some questions I can answer some way to give you some things to think about regarding who you're talking to. So, life planning for words and caregivers. So I should probably start by talking about why I came to this space about almost, can't believe it's been 2 years now. Been almost 2 years now since I've been in this space, 2024. First met Dr. Austin, a couple of folks in last year's leadership summit for SUT Summit in Atlanta and different things. And so what brought me to this place here was that I've been in effective services place now going on 15 years. I have served many families over the years. But what I saw was that our particular community was lacking somebody who's going to stand up and be an advocate for our own community overall. Somebody's going to take a stance and say, hey, look, how can we educate our community about the importance of life planning, financial planning, estate planning, different things? And so I prayed and asked God, hey, put me in a place where I can serve the community who looks like me more often than not. And lo and behold, I came to a couple of events, ran across somebody who was in the sickle cell community because I had a couple of products that could serve those in the sickle cell community, and not knowing that the work community is predominantly those of African descent, and that's how I ended up here. I saw a need, and I guess God was like, "Hey, look, you asked, I answered your prayer. You want to serve Black people? Here we are." And so that's kind of how we started there. So I love to start my meetings always with this statement, which is that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. I would like to say that oftentimes we don't ever think about the fact that life is long and time moves quick. Life is long and time moves quick. So wherever you are currently in your life journey, at some point we're all, babies, teenagers, minors, young adults, and more than that. And at some point you look at one day and you realize decades have passed on by, time has passed on by. And one thing we can always do, we can always get more money, we can make more friends, we can't necessarily get more time back. So where we are in your life, ask yourself, have I failed to plan or am I planning to fail? Because at some point, tomorrow will arrive tomorrow at some point. So the goal of today's conversation is this. And you'll see on the bottom right hand corner, you'll see a QR code, depending where you're at. On the very end, you also have an opportunity, invitation to kind of, if you have more questions, you want to talk to me kind of offline regarding your specific situation, be more than happy to reach out to me as well there too. But I want to kind of give a high-level overview of what we do, what I have to share with you guys, talk about some things regarding life insurance and able accounts, talk about some life planning skills, and at the end of each section, there are going to be some call to actions regarding things for yourself, for your family, and for your loved ones as well there too. So let's get started about some of the financial aspects of what we do. I'm aware that the work community, whether it is the caregiver or the worker, there's a need for have some sort of life insurance put in place. Oftentimes, words are like, hey, it's kind of hard to find a coverage. And I'm not gonna lie to you, that is a very honest statement, a very honest assessment there, right? Now, there's two different stages. There are those who are words and those who have the traits. Those are two very specific, different type of clientele one can serve. Because obviously, those who have the traits are easier to find coverage than those who actually are words themselves, depending on the qualifications going forward. I can tell people that insurance comes in two different flavors. There's your term option, there's your whole life option, or permanent options, and there are 5 factors that impact the cost of insurance, which is obvious sex. Generally men cost more to insure than women do. Women tend to live longer than men. Like I say, women take less risk than men do. One's health. The healthier you are, the more options you have. Age. The younger person somebody is going to gonna pay less than somebody who's a little older. Your face amount, the more coverage you want, you'll pay more for that than when someone uses tobacco or not. Now, I live here in California. So in California, we're a state that allows people to smoke marijuana. And yes, that's considered tobacco use here in California as well there too. So even gummies can be considered a tobacco use there too. On the other side of the spectrum are ways we can prepare ourselves regarding how to take care of those who may have a qualifying disability, which is an ABLE account. Let me make this very clear. An ABLE account is not free money from the government. An ABLE account is a way to put money set aside where your family or loved ones or yourself can have money set aside to help support your lifestyle as somebody who has a qualified disability that doesn't disqualify you from governmental assistance. So oftentimes I want to have workers or caregivers who are receiving government assistance, they're concerned about making too much money or have too many assets, different things right there too. So that's the value of an ABLE account there too. And I'll go a little deeper into that before I go any further. The two middle ones are really about what I found over the last couple of years is that caregivers and workers come from all walks of life, all different economic spectrums, And so for some of them, they may want to consider opening an investment account, a trading account, and do things with that to save for the retirement or for the future goals and legacy planning. Or maybe they're, what I love about a lot of the work communities and caregivers, they're all very entrepreneurial. So what type of business do you want to create? Do you want to create something that's like investing, real estate investing, maybe buy purchase a franchise, start a consulting business, buy a business, different things. All those type of things are things you can use to kind of get started there as a business there too. So with that, when I think about life insurance, I'm gonna go through this briefly, and then I'm gonna stop for give you guys a moment to ask questions you guys may have from this. There are a few different ways you can qualify for coverage for yourself and for your loved ones. As I mentioned, obviously, the toughest one, the hardest way is doing what I call traditional life insurance. We sit across a life insurance broker like myself or other individuals like myself, and you want to qualify based on your sex, your age, health, face amount, and type. Now, in that process, what people don't realize, oftentimes there are information that's out there that can impact your ability to get coverage. Generally, it's called the MIB and the Milliman telescript. Now, like I said, I'm can't get a little technical here. I know we're going to do a lot of information here today, but I'm going to click on a link here just shortly here to show you guys why it's important to know this information. So everybody's familiar with the EMR, electronic medical records, or your medical records at your hospital or where you seek coverage from. But the MIB is a place where they keep track of sometimes some of your medical, another place where your medical records can be kept as well. That could also impact your particular coverage. So let me give you an example. So I had a warrior I was trying to help get coverage with recently, actually about a couple months ago. Based on what was shared with me at that time there, the client should have been able to get approved for coverage. Well, right now we're in the process of having this particular warrior retrieve their MIB file because based on what they've shared so far, unless they were unaware or unless they had misrepresented their information, their MIB showed that they should have been declined for coverage there. So part of the reason you can kind of do some sort of level of like course correction on your health status is that if there's anything that's incorrect in the MIB file, you can go through. It's like trying to correct your credit report. You go in there, you dispute certain things, and if those things are removed or are in error, you're able to have a greater chance to get coverage going forward. Another story was that I had a word who was telling me we're sitting down for coverage, and she said that her doctor was trying to say that she had hemophilia versus actually being a warrior. And so we realized that misinformation makes a big difference how people can get coverage going forward. So the second link that's very important is your Milliman script. Now I'm aware that a lot of people have different type of medications they use for different purposes, and those medications can be used for more than one purpose. And those medications can impact your capacity to get qualified or coverage there too. So you can see here as a way, you go in here as a individual, you can request your own personal prescription report. And all of you guys will have this recording. You look at this there too. Why are these two documents important? Because as you're out there looking for coverage for yourself, this is kind of what I like to say, going under the engine of a hood, going under the hood of a car. These are reports that insurance carriers look at when it comes to trying to be qualified for coverage. If you have a prescription on your record or your database, or you have a diagnosis that are incorrect on your medical records, that could impact your capacity to have coverage. And when it comes to traditional life insurance, these are things that are being used to help you either qualify you or disqualify you from coverage. So now I'd like to stop briefly. I know I gave a lot of good information, kind of deep. Any quick questions or any comments in the chat across what I shared so far before I go any further? See anything in the chat here? Nope. Nope. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. I have a question,
Yeah,
and
sure.
it's one that I've heard asked amongst the warrior and trait warrior community, but also in general with regards to this MIB and the MI. Can the necessity for these be avoided by just getting a life insurance policy at the beginning of life, as soon as your child is born?
Great question. So most insurance companies require that the child has to be at least 15 days old. So so day 15 or day 16 above, as long as they have not been diagnosed as having, something in place, then yes, you're correct. It does make it a lot easier from that standpoint there too. Now, I'm aware that some states have almost an automatic genetic testing upon birth. So if that is true, then gets a little harder, right? Now, there is a workaround to some degree. And I'll talk about this just a second here when it comes to workplace insurance coverage, right? So about 7 months ago, I helped out a couple, a married couple, where one spouse is a warrior, the other spouse is not a warrior, but one of their children's one of their child, yeah, two children. One child has sickle cell, other one is it just does not. Well, because of the particular insurance company I work with, the company actually will allow the non-sickle cell parent to cover their child, their minor child who has sickle cell, because they don't ask any health questions. Now, I can't guarantee it applies to everybody. Sometimes insurance carriers are based on what they allow in each state. This state happened to be in North Carolina, so I was able to get the parent to cover their child. And I did another place with a mother who was in Ohio. Same thing. Her child was a minor because she was healthy. You can do what's called a child term rider, and I was kind of going down the pipe down a rabbit hole, but she was able to get coverage on her warrior minor child. So it depends, Dr. Austin. You kind of just ask and see. Every situation is a little bit unique in some ways for this. All right. When it comes to workplace coverage, that is another way you can coverage for yourself. And sorry, guys, another way you can coverage for yourself, and then some for those who are adults and gainfully employed. I would say ask what are your work benefits at your job. Oftentimes you will get work life insurance coverage, and sometimes you get what's called voluntary benefit coverage at the same time. So what's voluntary benefits? We've all heard the duck, Deion Sanders, quack quack, Aflac, right? If things right. So sometimes what that means is that you're able to get coverage up to a certain dollar amount without having to ask any health questions. Let me say that again. Sometimes with some employers, they have voluntary benefits, which means that you can qualify for life insurance coverage or other benefits up to a certain dollar amount without being asked any health questions. That's phenomenal, right? So it may be 10,000, maybe 20,000, it may be 50,000, different things, whatever it is. And the beauty of that is that at the time of separation from service or when you leave your job, you can take it with you. And so what I've gotten a habit of trying to do when I do these presentations and for my clients is start how do we stack options for the workers and for the caregivers with that too. Now, like I said, for the caregivers, some of them are pretty healthy. They pretty much qualify for pretty much anything. But for the workers who are obviously have the express traits, we have to figure out how do we stack our options there too. Option three is if option one, option two does not work. I do recommend that at some point that the families consider pre-burial policies. That's basically where you actually pay for one's cremations or burial needs, different things that's going forward there too. Obviously, there are no health questions. It's affordable. If someone lives here in California, where I live in California, and they want to, move to Texas, they can take it with them over time. And the beauty of that is that if whatever they pay in today's dollars is kind of locked in, so they're blessed to live another 10, 20, 30 years, as was told to me. That's what they're going to pay at the time of passing. So if in 20 years that same service costs 20 grand, they know that at some point that's one way to be able to accommodate over time there too. Then the last option is I call it option potential of last resort. There are some services out there that will allow you to donate your body to science in exchange for kind of a free service in some ways, right? So in essence, assuming that the person does not have what they call a communicable disease upon passing, some businesses, I'm gonna click on the link here shortly here, will allow you to donate your body to science, and it's kind of like one way to help alleviate costs. And so sometimes they have a group celebration on service life, or hey, that's when to get your body taken care of. So they may allow you to be able to have the body donated. They'll pick the body up, dispose of the body, dispose of the person, different things. And now it's up to you to decide how do you want to celebrate a person's life. So I'll share a couple examples here going forward here. So this one is Science Care, and this one is Research for Life. Just make here. And they generally do all the same thing. But what it does, it just shows you that as an option, what I'm realizing that, like I said, given that words and caregivers have the entire economic spectrum, where you are in your life may determine what you need for your options going forward there too. So this just means that, hey, you can call them, ask about, hey, what's the body donation process looks like. They'll tell you things they can do for you as well. Um, what that means for donating one's body upon this passing. I think one actually has a, for example, here, Science Care has a no cost cremation program because obviously donating your body is part of that process there too. And then the point it is, they can help you pre-plan for the future, get help when regarding those type of conversations there. And then depending on what they do, sometimes they have a group celebration of life situation, or like I say, since you know that the person, your loved one, has donated body to science, you can kind of plan for your own particular celebration of life as well there too. So that's kind of just as far as the life insurance stuff, different things. I'll any quick questions before I go any further? All right, like I said, I'll say time for questions at the end. I'm aware it's kind of drinking like a water hose, why this is being recorded there too, but with that going forward, we'll go with that. Now, ABLE accounts. This is what some people ask me quite a bit about. Bert, is this free money from the government? Very clear, the answer is no. It is not free money from the government. But it is a way for you to be able to have an account set up to put money set aside to help offset what we call QDs, qualifying disability expenses. Now, what is a QD? It can range all across the board. It could be for education purposes. It could be used for medical needs. You may be trying to go back to school. You may want to use it for things like legal things, such as what I'll talk about a little later about putting a trust in place and a will in place going forward. So what an ABLE account does is that it allows you to have, and there's one in every state. So this is a national website, but depending on what state you're in, you may want to figure out, is there one in my state? So let me give you an example. What does that mean? So let's say we look at Dr. Austin, because I see you. Give me a state that I want to look at ABLE account.
Texas.
Okay, so with Texas, this is Texas ABLE account. All right. So it'll pop up. Let's say these are Texas ABLE savings account. So if you live in Texas, North Carolina, California, Florida, whatever the case may be, you pull it up. It'll tell you how to apply for it, how to put it in place going forward as well there too. Now, the money that you put into the ABLE accounts, there are 4 ways the money can kind of be used or kind of allowed to sit there. You could treat it as a savings account, or you can invest the money. Now, I don't do the investing for the money. This is strictly between you and the state, and it's your personal preference. Like anything that's considered qualified qualifying disability expenses can be used from this account there too. So, what are a couple examples? Like I said, you can do it for education, legal needs, medical needs. And one of the videos they showed on this website was that uh, a person who was disabled had part of their home remodeled because they had a two-story home. They realized because they can't physically walk the same way, so they had an elevator, not an elevator, one of those electric stairs that come up staircase installed in their home because that was a qualifying disability expense there. So as long as it's considered a qualifying disability expense, it can be used for any reason you see fit for your home there too. Question people ask me, Bert, how do I know I have a qualifying disability? Well, this is the Social Security website. And you can see here under hematological disorders, you can see that obviously that sickle cell anemia is included as a, you know, qualifying Social Security disorder. So you have to worry about requalifying for that as long as your medical needs show that going forward, you qualify for the plan there too. And the beauty of this is now in 2026, if you're diagnosed with disability prior to the age of 46, so prior to this year, you had to be diagnosed with a disability prior to the age of 26. But now this year, you're diagnosed prior to the age of 46 or 45 years and 11 months and 29 days. You can just diagnose, you can qualify for this plan. The other benefit of this is that once again, if the account grows to a substantial amount, in this case to $100,000, it does not disqualify you from your government benefits. Let me say that again. I'm aware that for a lot of time, workers and caregivers, they're having to manage their asset class, right? Most oftentimes they can't have a lot of money, buying a cash value insurance policies or owning homes, different things. Sometimes they have to manage their assets. But in this account, you can use it if you have up to 100 grand, which would be a powerful blessing. it does not disqualify one from Social Security benefits, different things there too. So this is, so what I say, your action item for those watching the call today is go to your state website, put in Texas able accounts, Florida able accounts, California able accounts, Nevada able accounts. Go on there, open it up today. You can put up to about 20 grand per year up in there. So tell your family, friends, donate different things. I do want to make it very clear, this is not free money from the government. You would need to finance this on your own, and over time, you can let it grow from their standpoint. So before I go on to the next section, any questions so far? Let's see what's in the chat. Oh, hi, Merlin. See, hi. All right. Okay, and once again, if you guys have any questions, one more detailed questions, my QR code is down the bottom at the end. There'll be a chance to get on my calendar as well there too. So let's get into the life planning part of what we do. And I have some stories, almost about every single one here I can share about from my own personal clients I dealt with over the years, and specifically within the work community over the last 2 years. There's the will, managed medical directives, power attorneys, and trust. I tell people, I kind of make it kind of simple. What is a will? A will is like a GPS, kind of written instructions on what you want to see happen with your life and with your assets upon one's passing. The trust is like the car, the vehicle. So, you can drive your car. Now, in today's car must have GPS units. If you don't have GPS in the car, you at least have it on your phone. So, obviously, the trust is the vehicle. The will is the GPS, written instructions. And then what are assets? Assets are like fuel to the car. We call it funding your trust, right? So if you're somebody who owns property, owns a home, owns a car, or family heirlooms, and you want to ensure that it goes to who you want it to go to, then you use a trust to ensure that's all being protected because it avoids what we call probate going forward. The mass medical directives are things regarding what happens when somebody enters a hospital and they may become incapacitated and there may be a end of life decision that needs to be made at some point. With that being the case, somebody needs to be made aware of how do they decide what the doctor or nurse or medical staff is going to do. We make it sounds very, morbid. Do you have them, pull the plug? Do you have maintain life sustaining treatments, different things? Have you clearly outlined what do you want them to do when the time does come? And then the most important thing is power of attorney. And there are two important things about this that comes into play, which is that power of attorney for the caregiver and power of attorney for the word. They may seem separate, but I'm telling you, they both are very important for a couple different reasons why. In most states, um, if the word is a minor, generally the parent has next right of decision and next power of kin. We know that it sounds pretty self-explanatory. If my child is 15 years old, is in the hospital, is having a crisis, and maybe incapacitated as a mom or as a dad, I understand that I have the authority to make decisions on their behalf. If the minute your word turns of legal age in most states, that's the age of 18, and you have not talked to them about the importance, let me back real quick. Pay attention to what I'm about to say. The minute your word turns 18 and you have not talked about the importance of them assigning a power of attorney, which is you as the mom or dad, if they go to the hospital and they're over 18, you no longer have control of their welfare. I had somebody share a story with me recently about how that happened to their child. Although the parent had been a primary caregiver their entire lives, we assume that would be an automatic thing, but medical staff is not obligated to give you the right as a parent of an adult child. Um, Anybody who has children go off to college, they know what that means because you raise your child in your household. I used to be a resident advisor when I was at college. I'd have parents call me up with their child. I'm like, your child's 18. I can't do anything about it. Whole different story in itself. But the same thing applies to your child, your warrior adult child. So the other thing comes down to you as the caregiver. Who is your power of attorney? Who is your caregiver? Different things. Because sometimes worst thing that happen is that we don't die. Sometimes we actually live through a medical crisis there too. And as the caregiver, you have been well versed in the care of your warrior for their entire life, or vice versa. It could be the case. Sometimes the parents is the warrior, and the child has been partial caregiver. But in either case, you have been the primary caregiver for your warrior child their entire life. You suddenly become incapacitated. Who's gonna make the decision on your behalf as the caregiver? And furthermore, in the case where you may be the caregiver of your warrior, have you maintained continuity and custody of care in the event of your child? Things to think about, you know what I'm saying? Because we never realize, we all think about as a mom, as a parent, we're gonna do everything we can to take care of our younger of our loved ones. But when the roles are reversed and something happens and the caregiver suddenly becomes incapacitated, what happens now? So I call it the three C's: custody plus continuity of care, which gets very important. So all the things you'll put in your will, which is gonna be held in your trust, you get a notarized, it's a legal documentation, and you ask people who can oversee those things on your behalf. So before I go any further, the teacher in me once again is going to ask, are there any questions or comments people have about anything I've shared so far?
I actually do have a question, but I
Yes.
also just want to remind everyone that you are welcome to unmute and ask a question, or type your question in the chat. We do have a comment in reaction to that whole 18-year-old thing. Samantha Hughes says that is correct, and it surprised me when that kid turns 18. You cannot call the college and
Mm-hmm.
get information unless you have permission or whatever. But my question has to do with at what age, how old or how young uh, can you be to to establish a will or any of these things?
Well, I would say, Jenny, once someone reaches the age of consent, which in most states is the age of 18. So for us who are, maybe more seasoned in life, now is a good time to have one. We don't already have one, put one in place at any given moment. I would say depends on, I'd say the minimum age of 18 as one gets older. And from that standpoint, going forward, once the minute your child becomes an adult, realize that you as the parent or we as parents no longer have any decision making capacity over their lives anymore. And in most states, they're not going to honor your wishes no matter how long you raise that child. And because in most, and now if you have a spouse and and something happens to you as a caregiver and you're married, your spouse has decision making capacities over your life as your spouse. But if you're not married, there's nobody else there to make a decision on your behalf. They can't do it going forward there too. So that's why it's important. That makes sense, Dr. Austin?
That makes sense, but it also raises another question for me, and I'm not sure if we have any caregivers amongst us tonight, and you don't feel pressured to speak if you're not feeling to do so, but I'm just wondering if, sickle cell can be morbid. The conversation can be morbid.
Mm-hmm.
We are not, it's not lost on us that there are some instances where I've heard warriors describe themselves as having been put on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And their birthdays are major celebrations because, each year that they outlive that clock, it's like double, triple, quadruple the celebration.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just curious about where does the caregiver, I know, I've seen multiple ways that that's dealt with. There's a lot of spiritual equity that happens, and we lean into our higher power, uh, with prayer, with positive talk, and all of that. But is there that conversation by the caregiver with their warrior? And I see Samantha has identified herself as a caregiver, um, where you are saying, "Hey, we expect you to live, but you know, I'm just curious about that conversation."
And I thank you for bringing that up. What I would share is the transparency. It is not an easy conversation. I think we have to start acknowledge that reality check. One way to make it a little easy to digest is have a third party kind of lead the conversation. And I've led some of these conversations with some of my clients because no one wants to talk about, at some point we're going to leave this earth at some point, right? Some may leave it sooner, some may leave it later, right? On either side of the equation. So it, what I share is that what is the cost of not having the conversation at some point? Um, the sooner you have it, the I do the better it is for when the time does come. I think also it's a mindset decision at some point. I realize that the journey of a warrior caregiver is very unique, and part of that is mindset. Part of it is obviously faith based, right? You know what I'm saying? Whether it's God or whoever people pray to, could determine how long they live on this planet, and depending on what that looks like, that may determine how they show up, different things. What I shared one time with a work once was that for me, I don't know if I share this. I'm not a caregiver nor am I a warrior. I'm really somebody who kind of wants to help my community do well. And I was sharing with somebody that the terminology warrior means that we are inherently fighters for whatever we want. And with that being a fighter mentality, I would hope that we go from a surviving mindset to a thriving mindset, whatever that looks like, whether that lifespan is 10 years, 15 years, or 50 years, right? And if we have, I believe we get what we expect out of life, and that's going to help navigate how we show up in some ways, right? It's not an easy conversation to have, Dr. Austin. I don't I pretend that it is, but that's where having a value of someone like myself can come in and help navigate the third party conversation where I can, for that standpoint. But that's the best I can kind of share where that answer there too. So yeah. Now the trust, people often ask me, Bert, what's the cost for a trust? I'll talk about that shortly here. Once again, a trust is designed to avoid probate. Like I say, it gives control from the grave. Or even while you're alive, it's private. There are a variety of different things you can put in trust. Like I said, if you have assets, if you're a caregiver and you've been working a full-time job, you can put your retirement accounts in there. If you own homes, you can put family heirlooms in there, different things. You can assign a trustee to look at it from that standpoint. From that standpoint, the will, like I said, really is not it does not minimize the chance of going to probate. It's because of public records. Now, obviously, your DNR and POA, right? So, um, the trustee has a trustee. The medical director is somebody who has decision over one's inner life wishes, and then the POA is somebody who has legal right to make decisions on your behalf. Generally, the trustee and the POA are the same person. They can be different individuals. I always say if you're going to have assign somebody as your trustee and POA, make sure you ask them in advance so they're not surprised. So they're aware of that's a heavy responsibility. You can assign more than one trustee. You can have co-trustees or a contingency trustee as well there too. And you want to choose somebody who you believe can really have your best interest at heart. Because if you understand that their job is really to carry out your final wishes when a time does come when you pass on, um, when you pass on. So, and it may not always be a family member. I like to give my example. I am currently a trustee for my mom's account, and I share this example every time I have a story. My wife is a trustee for her parents account, where my wife is not the oldest child. She is the responsible child. So if you guys know what that means, you have siblings. My wife is the responsible child, which means she's the trustee for a house. You know what I'm saying? So those are real things that can happen for yourself. Special needs trusts and traditional trusts are different types of trust depending on what it is. If the warrior is somebody who may be receiving government benefits, then we need to set up a special needs trust for themselves. And why that's important. So traditional trust usually means you pass on assets or estate plan, different things. S&T is for somebody who may still need to use some of those assets to support their lifestyle. And what does that mean? That that person does not receive direct benefits on behalf of the trust. Let me give an example. So generally in a traditional trust, if mom or dad or somebody else is passing on, say a home or some sort of retirement accounts or different things, and they pass on, a trust says, hey, while I'm passing, you and your sibling will get 50% of everything else. That's a traditional trust. But in a special needs trust, maybe they need to have the home still house the warrior and or caregiver, but primarily the warrior, and maybe the assets, maybe the retirement account still needs to be used such a way to be able to pay for the lifestyle, right? So instead of the beneficiary receiving direct payments, that money may be used to pay for the housing, maybe for schooling, different things. Now, a couple real world examples. Recently, I had a warrior who's currently in the process, possibly receiving a settlement for, I guess, one of these pharmaceutical companies class action lawsuits. And one of the concerns was that when they receive these funds, could it possibly kick them off of SSI? And so we're currently negotiating a situation where the funds actually can be paid to the special needs trust, her settlement, that would basically bypass her, and special needs trust will hold the funds, and from there, those funds will be used to fund our ABLE account, and the money never touches her hands. And potentially, if it works out in our strategy, theoretically, she wouldn't have to worry about being kicked off SSI because of that, right? So that's a little more complex strategies for what it is, different things. Another case was I have another particular warrior in the community whose mother, whose parent has substantial assets upon their passing. Obviously, the adult warrior is still on SSI, so the mother created a special needs trust to help support the lifestyle going forward there too. So there are different things you can do going forward regarding these different type of trust. There's no right answer either way. It just depends on everybody's particular situation there. So, and if you ever need help with a particular attorney, here's a link to use. I cannot vouch or endorse these attorneys. I'm just saying I did some own personal research, and you can see here that you can find a special needs attorney for your particular area. So let's say I know Ms. Austin, you're there in Texas. So let's say you go down to Texas here, and you just click on Texas, and it'll put up some attorneys in that area. Now, obviously, if you know somebody you know personally, obviously you want to get referrals. But if you just need this, like a Yellow Book pages for, I just aged myself. Yellow Book, I think I know what Yellow Book pages. I'm sorry, I just realized that. So if you're like, what's a Yellow Book pages? But if you just need a random, hey, who's an attorney? I don't know where to even start. You can literally look on here and just click this link there as well there too. So, what are the costs for a trust? So there are a couple of different options. If you want to do a do-it-yourself plan, I've seen it be as low as about $2,000 for an investment, and I've seen it going up from there. Depends on how complex you want to do it as well there too. Um, I do have a vendor I work with. He does provide financing. So someone says, Bert, I don't have 2 grand up front. I understand. So he has a way he can get you financed, each paid off over time, right? So I do believe, regardless of where you are in life, in the stage you're in life, everybody should have a trust put in place. Nothing else to determine who's going to be POA, what's your medical directives, any assets you want to pass on, what's your final last will and testament, different things. You can even put your insurance policy in your trust. So for those who some here who may have children and you have a trust and you have a substantial life insurance policy, one thing was asked last summer at the conference there in Orlando was like, well, what's better, a trust or a life insurance policy? And I said, well, they're both important. Question is, how do you want the money to be used? So here's what I shared with the particular attendee at my workshop, which is this. They said, well, Bert, well, what if I have a policy for $500,000 and my two kids are a beneficiary? I said, that's very possible. You could do that. Nothing wrong with that. But do you realize on life insurance, all they're going to do is take the $500,000, pay 250 to one child, 250 to another child, and that's it. There's no direction on what happens to that money. So that's told the attendee. I said, I'm assuming your children wouldn't do this, but theoretically, your children can literally take the money and they would never have to bury you. They could theoretically, because legally they receive their check. But with the trust and the trust as a beneficiary, the trust can receive the funds from the life insurance policy, and then what that means is that you, as the trustee, as the parent, you can use that. You can determine how the money is being used for your surviving adult children, and if they have any children, for any of your grandchildren going forward there too. So the money can have a longer use of life than just receiving the funds upon one's passing there too. So those are a couple of reasons why I encourage people to have a trust to use for different things for whatever direction you want to have upon one's passing. So obviously, a couple of action items here is that you just want to start thinking about who in your family or loved ones you want to have as your trustee and as your power of attorney, and we can identify things you want to put in that trust going forward there too. So with that, um, here is my QR code. There's a link if you want to get on my calendar. Next week or so, I'm still at a conference right now, and if you get a question regarding me, you can click on my website, reach out to me directly, different things. But like I said, as Dr. Austin said, there are no um, simple questions. If you got any more further questions, I want to open the mic up for any questions, comments, concerns, anything else, your takeaways from today's call.
Hi, good evening. This is Samantha Hughes. I'd like to thank you for the information and for actually steering me onto a track that I didn't um, investigate before concerning the trust and things. So I appreciate your information tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure. So Samantha, always as a teacher in me, what is your one action item you're gonna do for yourself, given this information?
Well, one of the first things I'm going to do is I also have adult children, and I'm going to speak to them about wills for them and power of attorneys for each of them so we can get that in place and also to look into the trust aspect so that we can definitely avoid probate and any additional, in my instance, taxes going to the government.
Yeah, correct. And do your adult children have any kids?
Yes, I have one grandchild.
Okay. So one thing I've also shared with parents, especially those who have grandchildren, oftentimes people assume that if the parent, if their child, if their immediate first child passed away and their grandchildren, they would think they can retain ownership or guardianship of the grandchild. In most states, that is not the case. So when you talk to your adult children, talk to them about, hey, who's going to oversee your kids or my grandbabies should something happen to you prematurely. So that's something I also encourage you, Matt, to talk about to your kids about as well that too.
Thank you. And as you mentioned something about if anything should happen to them prematurely, what do you think about? You may have mentioned it, and I didn't hear it. Disability insurance.
That's possible. So I mean, we could talk about that if you want to, get on my calendar. I can talk your details may be a little more unique, but if you want to schedule time on my calendar, we can talk about that as well there too, Samantha. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you, Neef. I see you popped on camera real quick.
Hey, bro, how you doing? Hi, Dr. Austin. Hi, guys. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I joined late, but I saw on Dr. Austin's Instagram. I was like, let me try to see if I can pop in. But what are some just nuggets of information I can share with my young adult warriors out there? Because I got like a big group of young adult warriors that I can just share information to real quick, just like be like a text, something like that.
Man, first and foremost, for the young adults, I would say determine who they want to be their power of attorney. Start there because young adults don't think about what's going to happen going forward, right? Because if they're young adults, they're college kids, different things. Their mom and daddy can't do anything for them if they get admitted to the hospital because they're now legally adults. Second thing is to start thinking about retirement planning or a legacy planning for themselves as well, financially as well. And then the other thing I would share with them is they can, even at the young age, they can still put a trust in place for themselves at a young age. So as they grow and get older and start attaining assets, they can start using it as a vehicle to put things to set aside as well for themselves there too. And if they're currently gainfully employed, fully start asking the HR person what benefits they have available to them that is transferable when they leave their job.
Okay.
So what does that mean? So if people, most jobs will give you what I call free insurance. They have one time, two times your salary. That's what I call the free insurance. It's like pennies on the dollar, right? But then they have often additional insurance you can take with you when you leave your job, and sometimes that's the plan you want to start looking into for yourself. So when you leave your job, you can take it with you when it makes sense, especially with those who have, who's a word with a particular unique health status that makes it a little hard to qualify outside of work. That makes sense to you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Got you. So you said power of attorney and also financial planning for like college and also for early career jobs, as well as just talking with your HR department, make sure you know what benefits are available for you for
Yes.
like during. Okay. Okay. So I'll try to remember all that. That's a lot of information. I'll try to memorize all that in the short amount of time I was here. But I got you, dog. All right.
I got
Appreciate it.
you. My
Yeah.
pleasure, Steve.
And
No problem.
if you don't remember, you this is being recorded. It will be on the As One Foundation YouTube, so you can come back and reference it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Austin. Sounds good.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, is any other further questions for anybody else? We've got 5 more minutes here. And it could be anything. Like I'm open for anything else we'll talk about. I don't do hypnosis sessions on these sessions. Um, yeah, like how do I write a book, Bert? I wrote a book and became an Amazon bestseller. That was also a win there too. But yeah, this is my passion. I want to help our community understand the value of financial empowerment. We understand the numbers and how they show up different things for our community. We know the average is 13 to 1 regarding our wealth building capacity, and oftentimes it's lack of knowledge. And my story is I didn't know about this till I became a representative in the industry 15 years ago. So I didn't know then, so I share what I know now to the community, and hopefully we feel empowered. This is an empowerment group, not a support group.
Absolutely. And I definitely appreciate you circling back to that. And I'm just going to take some privilege to talk here. But please, if you have a question, unmute or type it into the chat. I, like you, Bert, am an ally in this community. I do not live with sickle cell disease or trait, but right around about 2011, 2012, sickle cell literacy, specifically sickle cell trait literacy, became my passion. And I look into the eyes of people, I hear them, and somehow I take that personally.
Mm-hmm.
And stealing a line from Dr. Lakia Bailey, she says that sickle cell, people living with sickle cell are all things people are.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I'm thinking about our warriors, thinking about our caregivers who are largely trait warriors,
Mm-hmm.
the concerns, the desiring to buy a home, have a business, travel, all of these things. So this conversation um, is one that was strategically chosen, but I just want to just really emphasize and amplify that the escalate space, which is spelled SCALATE, which stands for sickle cell across the lived and treatment experience, is a space that Dr. Tamia Austin is not defining. It is to be defined by us. And that QR code that's in the chat, I'm sorry, the link that's in the chat, and I will put it back again just to make sure um, we are aware of your opinions and desires, topic desires, as well as giving us feedback about tonight's session. People can be shy about asking questions, so hopefully you'll have a lot of QR code hits, Bert. But I am back to my original question about the age,
Mm-hmm.
because the shortening of life is not a new conversation. It's pretty regular in the sickle cell space. But transition is also one of those words that indicates moving a child through pediatric care to adult care.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of emphasis on transition because, as you indicated, when kids leave that pediatric care, that it becomes a danger zone because they don't have these beautiful medical rooms and team of care. It's now the responsibility of this young person that is now managing a chronic disease, chronic condition, and trying to be just a person, trying to be a teenager, just trying to be in puberty and love and like and all the things, because people with sickle cell are everything all people are.
Mm-hmm.
Now they got to deal with or think about, I need to schedule my appointments. I need to, manage my prescriptions. I'm dealing with a new symptom because I'm also hearing that things change as you age. And again, Dr. Bailey said, okay, people are living well into the 40s, 50s, 60s. So there's another stage of sickle cell that's happening. And I know in the sickle cell trait space, a lot of the symptomology is happening as the trait warrior ages.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a naturally needed occurring conversation that we're having with you tonight.
Yeah, I can add something about to that, Dr. Austin. So I will share a couple of things. If someone you know has the trait, generally speaking, they can qualify for life insurance and for most coverages. Now, I've heard, as I've been learning more about the community, that sometimes things can trigger it into a full-blown, sickle cell case, right? So if someone you know or you personally have the trait, sit down with somebody, whether it's myself or somebody else, and get life insurance coverage right away. Because generally speaking, that is not considered a disqualifying thing. If they do receive it, then it changes the game. When it comes down to the age bracket, right, I understand it, like I said before, it is not assumed, or I'm gonna act as if it's an easy conversation to have, whether for the caregiver, the parent, and or for the transitioning child, right? There's things there too. However, if you have a minor child who still needs to, who maybe have some concerns, talk to the community, talk to possibly to the colleagues or peers of yours, how to navigate those inner life conversations you need to have for um for your minor child. You know what I'm saying? So I understand. I am not trying to just be dismissive or act like that. It's a hard conversation to have. I'm very very much aware of that. Now, when they transition to age of adult age consent, same thing. Put things in place to understand how to have those conversations regarding what's the next thing to do, whether they stay at home, whether they travel, different things, so you understand. Just because they turned 18, all of us have been 18 at one point. No, just because we're 18 don't mean we're adults. We just have the law says we're adults. We don't act like adults, right? And so as the parents, caregivers, you may still need to be responsible, make sure that adult child, legally adult child, goes to doctor appointments, get their checkups, different things there too. And the last thing I would share for those on the call here is that I know this call is being recorded. You have a chance to get a replay and listen to it again as well there too. But one of my biggest concerns when I do these workshops is that now detainees become information junkies. They've heard a lot, and I do recognize it's like drinking from a hose. I literally could take every section and turn to a full-blown workshop, but I try to kind of hit it all at one time, and then hopefully that inspires some time to have a conversation either with myself or the professor different things, right? Because I don't know what may happen, different things too. If I can encourage the attendees on this call and those you know is to do something, take some sort of action, right? Everything I'm saying. Dr. Austin and I are allies to the community, and I don't know about what what caused you, Dr. Austin, but like I said, I want to help Black people do better. I'm very, very upfront about it. I'm very clear about it. I don't hide about it. I'm very unapologetic about it. I want to help our community do better because I want to help Black people do better and different things. And what hurts my heart is when they get these informations and we sit on it and we just pray that God will give us an answer. Well, sometimes God will give you an answer. Now it's waiting for you to do your part. We know what faith. We know what faith without works
It's
does.
dead. Yes.
So the faith is the answer came to you. Now the part you got to do your part in the same process there too. So I went off a little bit of a tangent there, Dr. Austin. Hopefully that gave you some clarity there and different things.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We are beyond time, so I just will say thank you to all of our participants tonight. This session is being recorded and it will live on the As One Foundation YouTube page. Meet us back here next month, every third Thursday. This is definitely the fourth Thursday, but the precedent going forward will be every third Thursday. Please visit our suggestion box link and suggest topics. Give us your feedback. Thank you for your comments. And thank you so much to our presenter tonight. Um, Please follow the As One Foundation on all platforms at As One Foundation, all spelled out. The As One Foundation on Facebook. We have our World Sickle Cell Day, Juneteenth Jubilee coming up. We have another blood drive, just lots and lots of stuff. And thank you, Bert. That was going to be my last thing was to ask for how we can follow you. There is his link in the chat. See everyone next month. Godspeed.
All right, take care.